She said it like it slipped out by accident, but the way the air shifted, you could feel it. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't a passing comment. That was fear. And once those words left Briana Chickenfry's mouth, the internet exploded. Robyn Brown wanted to kill me. In one sentence, everything twisted. What started as light reality show commentary turned into a murmur across the internet. A wave of confusion, mockery, support, disbelief. And for longtime viewers of Sister Wives, this wasn't just random noise. It hit something deeper. It touched a nerve that had been building for seasons. Because here's the truth. Sister Wives stopped being about polygamy a long time ago. It became about power, about control, about silence, about masks. And Robyn Brown, who came into the show as the shy newcomer, the sweet fourth wife, is now one of the most controversial and quietly calculating characters TLC has ever aired. But here's the part that made this moment so tense. Briana wasn't being dramatic. She wasn't reaching for clout or trying to exaggerate. You could hear it in her voice. Nervous laughter layered over something uncomfortable, something that sounded more like a memory. Her face twisted when she said it. Her eyes dropped. She hesitated. She second-guessed. That's the body language of someone speaking from experience. That's not performance. And yet, it caught everyone off guard. Robyn Brown? The wife who cries in almost every interview? The one who clutches her chest when family drama unfolds? The one who has built an entire decade-long reputation as being just misunderstood? That's the same woman Briana believed was capable of that kind of rage. The idea seemed outrageous, but the longer fans sat with it, the more the meaning sunk in. And no, she didn't mean it literally. Of course, Robyn Brown didn't physically threaten her life, but emotionally, publicly, socially, the suggestion wasn't about murder. It was about erasure, damage, shame. That was the real threat. The idea that showing up alongside Robyn Brown posed real risk to someone's reputation, boundaries, or peace. That's where this starts to click for longtime Sister Wives fans. Because if you've been watching, you know that Robyn doesn't have to scream to hurt someone. She doesn't have to yell to isolate them. Robyn's power has always lived in soft words and pity looks, in the game of quiet control. That's the danger. That's why this moment hit so hard. And here's what made the bombshell even bigger. Briana was afraid of Robyn's fans. She wasn't scared of Robyn herself anymore. She wasn't shaken by Cody or his ego or the claws of polygamy. She feared the reaction, the backlash. She thought saying Robyn's name out loud might trigger a swarm. But get this, that backlash never came. What followed instead was an overwhelming wave of support, relatability, agreement. Twitter lit up. Reddit dragged Robyn harder than ever before. Instagram stories filled with side eyes and laughing emojis. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, one thing became undeniably clear. People are done defending Robyn Brown. This wasn't just a bad PR moment. It was a turning point, a mirror. It reminded everyone who had doubted her motives just how far the narrative had changed. Robyn was no longer the misjudged fourth wife. She was no longer a symbol of misunderstood loyalty. People finally saw her for what she's shown through her actions for years. A woman who quietly pulled strings, twisted narratives, cried when it suited her, and stayed silent when things got ugly. And let's not forget how deeply she's tied herself to Cody's downfall. Because Robyn didn't just marry into a family, she helped break it apart, piece by piece, over years of growing control, favoritism, and carefully positioned silence. That's an uncomfortable truth Robyn has never had to answer for. Until now. This wasn't about a viral clip or a throwaway joke anymore. The internet finally said out loud what so many viewers have whispered for seasons. That Robyn isn't just part of the story. She's a main character in the collapse of the Brown family. And when Briana laughed nervously and muttered those words, she tapped into that history. That tension, that slow, quiet descent everyone watched, but no one dared to fully name. Now it's out in the open. And that's why this moment broke the internet. Because it wasn't just drama, it was a spotlight. A crack in the polished version Robyn has worked years to maintain. And the shock didn't come from what was said. The real shock came from how easily we believed it. And if that one sentence felt like an earthquake, what happened next was about to shake the foundation of everything Robyn built. Because we've seen the family fracture, we've seen the tears, but what we haven't seen yet is Robyn face the mirror without anyone else left to blame. And starting from that moment, the questions only get louder. Why didn't Robyn defend herself? Why didn't she show up to set the record straight? Or was this whole avoidance, her silence, an answer of its own? You know there's something deeper happening here. And what's coming shakes more than one reputation. Because the fallout Briana feared? That's only the beginning. She said she didn't want to do it because she was afraid of hurting someone. At first, it sounded noble, maybe even motherly. But the more you think about Robyn Brown's reason for skipping special forces, the less innocent it feels. What kind of hurt was she really afraid of causing? Because if it were physical, that doesn't even track. Robyn hasn't exactly been known for confrontational outbursts or flying fists. But what if the pain she feared delivering wasn't to someone else, but to herself? On paper, it looked like Robyn was simply backing out of a tough reality show. Harmless, right? No big deal. Cameras, mud, yelling instructors. It's a challenge not everyone's built for. But when the idea was floated that Robyn declined the opportunity out of concern for what she might do to someone, something shifted. Viewers pulled back. That excuse didn't make sense. That excuse felt a little crafted. Because the truth is, saying no for ethical reasons can be a powerful mask for pride. Robyn didn't show up because she didn't want to lose. Not just at the physical tasks, but at the game of perception, the game she's played for years and years. The one where she's fragile, feminine, spiritual, detached from the drama, slightly above it all. If she had stepped foot onto that set, it would have exposed her in real time. No editing, no couch monologue, no safe tears, just raw, unfiltered reaction. And she knew she wouldn't survive that spotlight. This wasn't about preventing harm to others. This was about protecting one thing, her image. Because let's be honest, the Robyn we see on Sister Wives always manages to edit herself mid-conflict. She breaks during tension, cries in the middle of confrontation, but somehow always recovers quickly enough to still look like the misunderstood one by the end. Every moment she's passed judgment or whispered something damning, it's been wrapped in calm, sorrowful delivery. That personality doesn't hold up under pressure. It cracks. And on special forces, there's no time for scripting tears or shifting blame. That show chews up control freaks. It breaks down the people who need to be liked. You could almost see it. Robyn, surrounded by women who have real grit, listening to the instructors bark out orders she couldn't charm her way out of. She wouldn't be able to hide behind Kody, behind her spiritual sensitivity, behind her carefully managed reality TV persona. She would stand beside women like Christine, like Janelle, like Briana, women who have faced her silence and her favoritism and her strategic victimhood privately for years. And Robyn knows what she's done. She knows her distance, her tears, her loyalty to only one person, Cody, caused real damage. These aren't exaggerations, they're patterns. Season after season, we've seen her quiet influence twist family events into emotional landmines. She doesn't shriek, she doesn't lash out. She isolates, she withdraws, she plays the long game. And a show like Special Forces, it destroys long games in a matter of hours. So, when Robyn said she didn't want to hurt someone, it read less like a concern and more like a warning. Maybe not for others, but for herself. Because once the world sees the real you, there's no pulling it back. She was never going to scream or fight, but she would have panicked. She would have folded. She would have unraveled in a way that blew a decade of reputation apart. That's the kind of hurt Robyn couldn't risk. And let's be honest, she survived for a long time by staying just outside the fire. Close enough to influence things, far enough not to be blamed. But this time, the fire asked her to step inside. No script, no Cody, no fanfare, just her. And she said no. The entire Sister Wives fandom knew exactly what that meant. Robyn's performance only works with editing. On a show like Special Forces, there would have been no audience to charm, only people to survive next to. And in a room like that, survival comes down to truth. Not feelings, not stories, not how well you wipe tears without smudging mascara. It comes down to grit, leadership, teamwork. And Robyn? She's never shown loyalty to a team that didn't center her. So she backed out. And this is where something finally clicks for a lot of fans. The tears, the soft voice, the spiritual talks, they've hidden something colder all along. Not rage, not violence, but fear. Fear of being seen without the veil. Fear of facing consequences. Fear of showing cracks when there's no sympathetic music in the background. And protective as she is of her image, even Robyn knew this was a line she couldn't cross without losing everything she's worked so hard to shape. Because if that mask had slipped, even for a second, the public wouldn't have forgotten. And Robyn Brown knows better than anyone. Once the crying stops, people look a lot closer at what's really there. It didn't happen all at once. There was no single, dramatic explosion that turned the audience against her. Robyn Brown didn't crash into controversy like a storm. She became one over time. Quietly, subtly, like a leak under the floorboards that you ignore until the whole thing collapses beneath you. For years, she was the soft one, the sensitive wife, the woman who cried through confessionals and claimed she just wanted the family to be close. And at first, people believed her. She was the new wife trying to fit into an already complicated household, trying to earn her place in a system that, let's be honest, was shaky long before she arrived. But somewhere between her joining the family and the last season, something shifted. Not in her facial expressions, not even in her words. It was in her silence. When Christine left, Robyn spoke, but it wasn't empathy we heard. It was guilt, wrapped in self-pity. "I feel so bad," she murmured. But there was no fight to understand Christine's heartache. Her tone never cracked with real worry. It cracked with fear, for what Christine leaving meant for her life, for her fairy tale fantasy that never included being last wife standing in a broken-down marriage. And then came Janelle's explosive confrontation, the fight that shook everything, the public watch party of 2 decades of resentment boiling over. The moment Janelle stood face to face with the man Robyn had protected, defended, and quietly enabled, and said what millions of fans were screaming from their couches: "You've destroyed this family." And where was Robyn? Sitting quietly, watching it happen, barely moving, flinching, but saying nothing. That's when it broke. That's when the illusion finally started to fall apart. Fans saw it, raw and unedited. They realized Robyn wasn't crying for the family. She was crying for control. The structure that had shielded her for over a decade was crumbling, and this time, no amount of gentle interviews or choked-up lines could save her. She stopped appearing as someone caught in the crossfire. She started looking like the one holding the match right before it all burned. And then came the disengagement. The obvious way she began pulling away from the drama once things got uncomfortable. The detached expressions in family meetings. The way her gaze wandered while Cody sabotaged every final bridge to the other wives. Her lips tightened, her hands folded politely, but nothing in her face said resistance. Nothing in her energy told us she wanted to stop any of it. For a woman who once wept at the thought of losing family unity, her absence in the hardest moments was deafening. People started rewinding, rewatching old seasons with new eyes, looking again at those early "poor me" monologues now seasoned with hindsight. They remembered how Robyn always seemed to benefit from the chaos, how she ended up legally married to Cody while the other wives stayed spiritual, how her kids got stepdad adoption, how the holidays always bent in her favor, how even the family finances, frozen assets, and land discussions started to tilt toward what was best for her. And now, there are no other wives left for her to measure against. No rivals, no competition. But there's also nothing shielding her. With Christine gone, Janelle finished, and Mary finally releasing the delusion, all eyes are on the last one still clinging to what's left. The comment section turned, blogs turned. Even Facebook groups, once cautiously split, now speak one language. Robyn isn't the victim anymore. She's the enabler, maybe even the architect. And though she still cries on camera, those tears don't move people anymore. Viewers see them differently now, not as sadness, but strategy. Not as hurt, but habit. Because when you cry through every moment, eventually people stop listening. And when you stay quiet during the ones that matter most, they never forget that you didn't speak up. Robyn's image isn't falling because of one wrong quote or one bad move. It's collapsing under the weight of years of silent decisions, years of letting things happen, as long as they didn't affect her. The audience once gave her grace. Now they're giving her questions. And the most unsettling one of all, without the victims to press against, what role is left for Robyn Brown to play? He came in with swagger, shirt off, hair wild, already playing the role of the heroic underdog before the competition even started. Cody didn't walk onto special forces like a man with something to prove. He walked in like a man who still believed he was the main character. And for about 5 minutes, he tried to be. That was until the reality of the show met the fantasy he built for himself and tore straight through it. From the first drill, his energy was loud, too loud. Jokes that didn't land, bravado that didn't match the moment. And then came the push-ups, the lifts, the discipline. Watching Cody struggle wasn't just physical, It was emotional. You could see the layers of ego peel back with every shouted command that didn't revolve around him. And then he broke. Fast. Day 3, we're told there's a hamstring injury. But something doesn't feel right. Because the very next time we see him, he's jogging, lifting, moving like nothing's wrong. It was already clear. This wasn't about a pulled muscle. It was about a wounded pride. Kody wasn't injured. Kody was exposed. Before the instructors could strip him down, he pulled himself out, called it injury, called it timing, anything but what it really was: surrender. The minute he realized he wasn't the strongest, or the leader, or even mildly respected, his platform crumbled. What shook people watching wasn't just the quitting, it was how visibly uncomfortable he was around women doing better than him. More composed, more focused, more willing. And not just women in general, but women like Janelle, whose quiet strength was always dismissed, until it outlasted him. He tried humor, he tried sarcasm, but what he couldn't try was humility. Kody walked onto that show thinking his presence alone carried weight, that his years in the wilderness of polygamy made him instinctually respected. But the instructors didn't care about his titles, and the cast didn't care about his legacy. For the first time in years, he was just a man, standing in a group of equals, and he didn't know how to survive without being worshipped. This is the part that no one said out loud, but everyone understood. Kody has lived in a world constructed around his emotions, an environment carefully curated by selective honesty, one-sided apologies, and the ever-patient buffering of wives who were too exhausted to keep arguing. But special forces? That world doesn't exist, and that's what broke him. It wasn't the challenge, it was the confrontation, with his limits, with his failings, and most painfully, with the fact that no one there admired him simply for showing up. And now, here's where the Robyn connection comes crashing back in. She didn't join the show. She had her excuses. But watching Kody flail without her painted the full picture. She didn't skip to protect others. She skipped because she already knew this would happen. Robyn knows Kody better than any of the wives left in recent years. She knows his triggers, his delusions, and especially his desperate need to be seen as the center of gravity in any room. Without Robyn there to whisper, to correct, to paint excuses over his unraveling, Kody was left standing in front of a camera completely unfiltered. And she couldn't take that risk. She built part of her image on his status, and his deterioration reflects onto her now, whether she likes it or not. Everything he became out there, petty, disrespected, resentful, confused, was the man the other wives had been confronting for years, the one he keeps denying exists. And now the entire world saw it with no cutaways and no edits. What's worse, he still didn't understand. In his exit confessional, Kody spoke with pride, as if he'd contributed something, as if his experience wasn't a failure, but a noble mark of effort. He couldn't see what everyone else saw, a man so tangled in his image that he'd rather say he quit for pain than admit he couldn't stand not being admired. There was no reinvention, no growth, only a painfully public reminder of who he's always been when challenge meets ego. Fragile, deflective, and running from the default truth he never wanted anyone to say out loud. Without power dynamics to control, Kody collapsed. Would Robyn have survived that same spotlight? Or did she step aside because she already saw the wreckage coming? It used to be easier to pretend. Back when they were younger, more forgiving, more willing to believe Dad was just busy or trying his best. But those days are gone. The kids have grown up. They've lived through the silence, the missed events, the shifting priorities. And now, they know. What's painful isn't just the distance. It's watching Kody still try to rewrite the story, still insist he's working on it, rebuilding, close with some. But the cameras don't lie, and neither do the kids. Not the adult ones, not the teenagers who've been watching from the sidelines. They're talking now, not always in loud declarations or call-outs, but in absence, in choice, in who shows up and who simply never does again. Logan, Aspen, Gwendolyn, Hunter, Gabe, Isabel. The silence from them speaks louder than any interview Robyn could ever give. And when they do talk, it's not warm, it's not defensive. It's hurt buried under years of being told to accept half a father. When Gwendolyn says it bluntly, he's not a good husband. He's not a good dad. There's no shock anymore, no gasp, just exhale, because it confirms what so many viewers already saw. Kody being close to 7 kids, it shrinks fast once you realize they're nearly all from Robyn's household. The rest? Scattered, heartbroken. There's no mistaking it. Robyn's presence didn't just shift Kody's heart, it shifted his entire idea of family. Overnight, the wives weren't equal anymore. Neither were the children. And that's where Robyn loses control. Because say what you want about the adults, their choices, their marriages, their words, but the children, they watched without power. And now that they do have a voice, they're not using it to protect what Robyn helped build. They're using it to pull back the curtain. Some avoid eye contact when her name is mentioned. Some laugh awkwardly when Kody claims, "Everything's fine." Some are silent altogether. But it's not forgetfulness, it's emotional damage. They remember the favoritism, the canceled phone calls, the missed college tours, the empty chairs at birthdays while holidays were spent exclusively down the street with Robyn and her kids. They watched their dad pull further and further away, and they watched Robyn never stop him. She didn't need to forbid anything. That's not how she operates. What hurt wasn't what she said, it's what she didn't say. The invitations never extended. The visits never offered. The tension in the air when one of Janelle's kids came around. They felt her discomfort. They weren't wanted, not fully, not equally. And still, Robyn has never publicly addressed that divide. No apology, no healing words, no steps to fix it. Just tears when things fell apart. But those tears, they were too late. The kids don't need a mother figure now. They needed one years ago, and the silence then isn't forgotten now. Meanwhile, Kody tries to make math out of connection. He breaks down who he's still close to, like a press release, not like a father. But everyone watching can see. Close means lives at Robyn's house. Working on it means the door's closed unless they apologize first. And the heartbreak hits hardest when you realize he believes it. He still doesn't see how much he's disappeared. He credits effort that never happened. And Robyn? She lets it sit. She lets him believe he's making progress, while the rest of the family grows stronger and more bonded without them. The audience has noticed. In every couch scene, every group story, the adult kids laugh together now. They raise their own families. They lean on the moms who stayed when things got hard. But none of that joy includes Kody or Robyn, and the divide gets colder. Robyn once held control through quiet power, just enough presence to influence, just enough absence to escape blame. But that shell is cracking, because the kids grew up. They saw who showed up for them and who didn't. Robyn can't pivot now. She can't rebrand. Not with this many eyes watching. Not with this many hearts already scarred. The family story won't be edited into balance anymore. They remember everything. And the truth doesn't need words. It's living in every hello that never came, every hug that never happened, every memory they built without her. Christine walked away with her head high, but it wasn't pride that lifted her. It was peace. Real, earned, hard-won peace. And you could almost feel it radiating off her in every scene that aired after she left Cody. There was no bitterness in her voice, just clarity, a quiet knowing that she made the decision she should have made years earlier. And she hasn't looked back since. Janelle wasn't far behind. At first, she hesitated, hoping Cody would work harder, that he'd shift, even slightly. But when push came to shove, when he chose control over connection, when he stood in the ashes of a crumbling family and still pointed fingers, Janelle finally drew the line. Not with anger, not with chaos, with finality. And something happened that no one expected. They both thrived. Separated from the noise, removed from the hierarchy that had always favored one wife above the others. Alone, for the first time in decades, but not lonely, not broken. They found themselves again. Meanwhile, Robyn stayed exactly where she wanted to be all along. At the top, at the center, at Cody's side, undisturbed and unchallenged. She won, didn't she? Legal wife, full-time partner, undivided attention, every holiday, every decision, every ounce of energy funneled into her family unit. It should have been everything she worked for. But now, she looks tired. Not physically, emotionally. Her face is strained in ways it wasn't a few seasons ago. Her sadness no longer feels sympathetic. It feels suspended, caught between holding up the lie and realizing it's too late to fix what's been broken. The denial is loud now. She talks about unity like it's still possible. Cries over a dream that left years ago. She says things like, "I wanted it to work." But she's too deep in the story she helped build to admit she benefited from everything falling apart. Because once the other women left, she stopped having to compete. But she also lost the narrative. There's no polygamy left. It's just marriage now. And the only person she has left to bond with is the one man who can't stop unraveling in front of the world. Christine and Janelle, separated from the weight of Cody's expectations, rediscovered their power. Their children trust them. Their lives are lighter. They even laugh now, out in the open, with people who make them feel safe. It's joy stripped of performative sacrifice. But Robyn? All she has is the house, the cameraman, and a man who's too busy being offended by his ex-wives to reflect on why they left. There's something incredibly sad about watching her try to still be the voice of reason, still trying to understand, as if she's an outsider somehow. She's no outsider. She's been there through it all. Every loyalty shift, every broken promise, every choice that left the other women feeling erased. And now that there's no one left to buffer Cody's worst impulses, she's drowning in the version of him the others spent years warning about. You can see it in how much she avoids confrontation now. She stays quiet, withdrawn. She flinches at his jokes, rolls her eyes, but never speaks loud enough to disrupt the story she fought to protect. Because admitting that Cody is not who she thought he was, or worse, that he is exactly who he's always been, would cost her everything she clung to. Meanwhile, Christine is out in the world taking real risks, moving on, remarrying, doing holiday parties filled with love and laughter, speaking boldly about what she wants, for herself, for her kids. for her life. Janelle is setting standards, drawing boundaries, refusing to relive the same conflict for another decade. Two women who were once painted as cold or difficult are now the most centered among them. And the one who once claimed moral high ground is stuck in a house where love sounds more like obligation. Robyn doesn't look victorious anymore. She looks isolated, exhausted, still clinging to a story where she's misunderstood, not complicit. But there's no denying the contrast. One home is full of hope and future and laughter. The other is filled with reminders of loyalty that trapped itself in pretending things weren't as bad as they clearly were. Christine and Janelle broke free from the performance. And Robyn? She's still holding the curtain closed, hoping no one's noticed the stage has already gone dark. She used to smile through everything, used to tilt her head, soften her voice, and say she just wanted peace. Robyn Brown was the favorite wife, the legal wife, the last one standing. And in theory, that should have made her the winner. But now, when the cameras turn to her, that smile doesn't reach her eyes anymore. Her face tightens. Her laugh falls flat. The weight of it all is settling in, and it's heavier than even she expected. Because what does it mean to win when the prize is a man unraveling in slow motion? When Robyn sits beside Kody these days, there's a quiet gap between them. Not distance you can measure with inches, but with silence, with sighs, with the way she holds her hands tightly in her lap, eyes darting away when he starts one of his long, defensive rants. She used to nod through them. Now, she holds her breath, hoping he doesn't say something she'll have to later explain away in a confessional. She doesn't fight him. She doesn't challenge him. But she also doesn't really support him anymore. Not the way she used to. There's a visible shift. The warmth is fading. What's left is routine, obligation, survival. And Kody? He doesn't notice. Or maybe he simply doesn't care. He's too consumed by being misunderstood, too caught up in whatever story he's spinning next to feel how the air between them has cooled. The one person who championed him, who cried on couches defending him, is now shrinking behind him. Not because she's defeated, but because she's stuck. That's the part no one expected. The one wife who was supposed to win ended up with no support system, no sounding board, no escape. She can't call Christine. She can't meet Janelle for lunch. The sisterhood is gone, burned in the fires of everything she let happen. Now, it's just her and Kody. And when he's pacing the house, angry at the world again, there's no one else to absorb it. No buffer, no balance. Robyn once benefited from being Kody's confidant, his listener, his resting place. Now, she's his only audience, and his most exhausted one. And don't mistake it, she is exhausted. Not in the loud, dramatic breakdown kind of way, but in eyes that don't light up anymore. In forced moments that feel more like going through the motions than choosing love. She still clings to the language, talks about unity, mentions faith, but it doesn't carry the same conviction it used to. Not when her body language tells a different story. She shifts away from him on the couch now, crosses her arms more often. Her laughter is quieter, more awkward. And when Kody brings up the other wives, instead of offering teary support, she stiffens, looks irritated, taps her fingers against her leg, trying to stay composed. And above all, she avoids eye contact, accountability, confrontation. Robyn is not the naive newcomer anymore. She's a woman backed into a corner she helped build. And she's finally realizing what Kody looks like. When you can't disappear behind other wives, or blame someone else, or call it family struggles. Now, it's not a plural marriage anymore. It's a two-person echo chamber. And truthfully, it doesn't look romantic. It doesn't look fulfilling. It looks lonely. Robyn's guilt doesn't need to be spoken. It's written across her every interaction. The quiet flinches, the delays in responding, the way she keeps her distance, emotionally, even when her words try to pretend they're close. She didn't imagine this ending. She thought being the real wife would mean final peace, a complete family. But instead, she got the full weight of Cody Brown, and nothing to soften the blow. All this time, she was trying to become the favorite. Now, she's the last one left with him. And suddenly, that doesn't feel like a reward. It feels like a situation she can't escape. Coyote Pass was supposed to be the dream, a fresh start, a shared legacy, a final vision of unity after years of chaos. A place where all the wives would build their homes side by side, where kids could run between porches, and the family could finally live what they'd preached for years. But like most promises in this family, that dream was never built. And when the dust settled, only one wife was still standing there, Robyn. It didn't happen with yelling. There was no screaming match, no courtroom-style betrayal. It happened the way most things do in this family, quietly, awkwardly, through side comments and half-explained meetings. Janelle waited. Mary observed. And Robyn kept her silence, even as their positions on the land began shrinking in reality. Janelle had been counting on that property. For years, she invested in it, literally and emotionally, even living in a cramped RV in the Arizona heat to be close to it. She believed in the plan, believed in Kody. But when the time came for action, for real decisions, what did she get? Talks behind her back, shifting numbers, a broken trust she took years to build. Mary was another story, always the one kept at arm's length, always waiting for the crumbs of acknowledgement. And even when she quietly agreed to let Kody move on, she still believed she'd be respected in the final chapters. But when the land conversation came up, her name was floating in and out of it like an afterthought. Like she wasn't the first wife who helped build this family from the ground up. Like history didn't matter now that Robyn was the wife whose kids still lived at home. And Robyn? She watched it all unfold and said, nothing. No advocacy for fairness, no push to include, no tears this time, just passivity. The same worn-out script. I want us all to be together, but I didn't know what was going on. But by now, no one's buying it. That passiveness wasn't neutral. It was a choice. A choice to let others fall so she wouldn't have to. A choice to remain silent while benefiting from everyone else being pushed out, one by one. And that illusion Robyn tried to keep alive, that she was innocent in all the chaos, it cracked wide open at Coyote Pass. Because what kind of unity is left when you're the only one still holding a deed Robyn once gained from being the victim, from staying above the fray? But her silence on Coyote Pass isn't seen as grace anymore. It's seen as convenience, opportunism masked as meekness. And here's the cruel irony. She got what she wanted. A future, a home, a quiet life alone with Kody. No more sister wives to compete with, no divided loyalties. But she also ended up alone. There's no handing off of kids anymore. No shared holidays. No polygamous porch talks filled with laughter and baby announcements. Coyote Pass was supposed to be a village, Now it's an empty field, with one house going up and no one left who wants to live next to her. And it's costing her. You can see it in her face every time land is mentioned. The tension, the defensiveness, the nervous eyes that never land on anyone else for too long. She got the house, but she lost the family. Because winning by exclusion doesn't feel like winning at all. And maybe now, surrounded by silence, by the voices that went quiet when she didn't speak up, by a man more bitter than loving, Robyn's starting to realize it. She didn't rise to the top. She watched everyone leave. And now, Coyote Pass is not a symbol of unity. It's proof of a family that will never rebuild. When Robyn first entered the family, everything was still holding together. Barely, but just enough to look convincing. The children were younger, the wives were still trying. The dynamic was frayed, but not yet torn. Robyn stepped into a structure that had already been built by effort, compromise, decades of emotional suppression. And she didn't have to lay a single brick to reap the reward. She came in right at the peak, when there was money, attention, a growing television audience, and a legacy being forged under the banner of plural love. Christine still believed back then. So did Janelle. Even Mary, though already bruised, was hanging on. Robyn didn't walk into dysfunction. She walked into a functioning system, simmering with tension, yes, but very much intact. And then, slowly, she started collecting what she didn't have to earn. The legal marriage, the only adoption that ever went through. The flexibility to say no, to set boundaries the other wives weren't allowed to ask for. Higher standards of respect, quieter holidays, more consideration, a softer life in every way. Robyn was never the construction crew of this family. She was the one who showed up to enjoy the finished house. The empire had been built before her. And still, she inherited it without lifting the same emotional weight. While the other wives were raising kids as a team, triaging hurt feelings, covering for Cody's bad days, and surviving group arguments when no one backed them up, she sat at the edges, not untouched, but certainly less bruised. Now, years later, what's left? That empire is gone. The family is split. The unity has shattered. The dream they used to sell, about polygamy being joyful, functional, blessed, has collapsed in front of viewers. And who's still there to sweep the ruins? Only Robyn. She holds the last thread of what used to be a legacy, but now it's unraveling in her hands. And Cody? He's not the same man she married with stars in her eyes. He's angry, battered by public control slipping away, defensive, resentful, proud without support, softer only when it flatters his ego. He walks through his life like the world owes him something, the affection, the loyalty, the praise, none of it earned, but demanded. That's what Robyn is left with now. A man who used to command the room, but now avoids blame like it's oxygen. A man who talks about protecting his family while standing in the middle of its wreckage. A man who once spun love into a statement of faith, but now uses faith to justify favoritism. And Robyn doesn't look like someone in love anymore. She looks like someone trying to make peace with her own choices. There's a tiredness in her now that goes deeper than fatigue. It's disappointment, not just with him, but with what loving him has cost her. Because maybe it was never just about Cody. Maybe it was about the structure, the idea, the lifestyle. Robyn moved into a family that seemed, at the time, full of promise and purpose. And now she realizes, so much of that purpose was wrapped up in everything the other women built. And now that it's gone, when there's no plural unity left, when the children are estranged, When the family name brings more backlash than admiration, she's sitting in the ruins, holding on to Kody, but also just holding on. He isn't the prize, he's the weight. And maybe, deep down, Robyn knows she didn't fall in love with the man. She fell in love with what he had. And now that everything is broken, what's she holding on to? There's no empire anymore, just a crown that doesn't fit, and a kingdom that no longer exists. She said she never wanted to be a monogamist, that this wasn't the plan, that she joined a plural marriage for the family, the community, the faith, the legacy. But as Sister Wives stands today, Robyn Brown is now all that remains of what once looked like unity. 4 wives, 1 shared mission, nearly 24 kids, a bold lifestyle captured on camera for over a decade. And now, that vision has rotted into a hollow frame, a broken family, and a house so quiet, even the echoes have stopped answering back. This isn't a love story, it's a cautionary one. Kody and Robyn spent years building a world centered around control, masquerading as structure, and favoritism disguised as fairness. Every sacrifice the other women made, every time a child was dismissed, every postponed dream and shifted holiday, it all led to this moment. A living room filled with tension instead of family. Holidays that carry more silence than celebration. A marriage that feels less like romance and more like endurance. You can feel it now, the weight in Robyn's eyes when she speaks. The way she tries to explain things, as if word choice might save her from what the audience already sees too clearly. She says she's heartbroken. She says she never wanted this. But what hurts isn't the absence of the other wives, it's the exposure. There's no more family to blame, no more miscommunication. There's only Robyn and Kody, and a crumbling tower of decisions that can't be defended anymore. Robyn once played the role of the quiet fix. It was never her mess, but somehow always her voice that wanted to clean it up. But now, nobody's asking her to fix anything, because the people who once sat across those long family meetings have stopped showing up altogether. And the audience? They're no longer clapping for the soft-spoken martyr routine. They're watching for one thing: truth. Christine already stepped into hers. Janelle followed. Mary found enough strength to leave the table where love wasn't being served. And now, Robyn is left alone in the spotlight she tried so long to avoid, and finally can't escape. Because here's the haunting thing about being the last one left. You don't just inherit the final say, you inherit the consequences. And those consequences are closing in fast. Finances are tight. The show that sustained multiple households is now documenting what's left of one. Fans have noticed the heaviness, how life doesn't look expansive anymore in that massive house. It looks closed off, darker. The kids are growing. The emotional labor is real. Kody is unraveling faster with every episode, every camera angle that doesn't support his version of the story. He wants control, but has no handle on his image. Wants respect, but weaponizes pride. Wants loyalty, but gives none. And Robyn is no longer able to buffer the damage the way she used to. Not when every season makes one thing louder. Kody Brown is not a misunderstood man. He is a man who created distance and now lives inside it. And Robyn? She's not just living with him. She's stuck in it too. Her identity as the favorite wife has collapsed. She's not surrounded by angry sister wives anymore. She's surrounded by the silence of the fallout. And now, She doesn't just flinch when Kody speaks. She seems to fold. Her face drops. Her words waver. You can almost see the question forming in her head. What did I sign up for? And how do I survive it alone? It's no longer a polygamous love story. It never truly was. It's a slow-motion dismantling of a structure held together by selective effort and quiet competition. Robyn didn't outlast the others. She was simply the last one willing to pretend. But how much longer can she do that? Now that the checks are smaller, now that the emotional debt is bigger, now that the final wife is married to a man who's still chasing respect in TV interviews while his family quietly builds new lives without him. Next season, the cracks will go deeper. More truth will spill out. Financial pressure will grow, resentment will thicken, and the real question won't be whether Robyn can repair this story. It'll be whether she even wants to live in it anymore. Because eventually, even the strongest enablers reach a breaking point. And when the show ends, and the lights go off, and there's no camera left to cry to, what is Robyn really left with? A home filled with memories that don't feel like hers. A husband who's still fighting ghosts. An empire she never helped build, now turned to ash. So I'll leave you with this. Did Robyn really win? Or has she always been the most trapped of them all? Drop a comment below and tell me, if you were in her place, would you stay? Or would you finally walk out of a story that was never yours to begin with?